He's just my boss. If you're jealous just because he drove me home at 2 a.m., that's your insecurity talking, not my problem. Those were the words Maigret threw at her husband Zeus when he caught her walking through their door at 2:17 in the morning, lipstick smudged, smelling like another man's cologne. She thought she was in control. She thought her affair with Lawson Crane was just a thrilling secret that made her feel alive again. She had absolutely no idea that her boss wasn't just using her body, he was setting her up to take the fall for corporate fraud that could land her in federal prison. What Zeus discovered in the next 3 weeks will make you question everything you think you know about affairs, manipulation, and the difference between revenge and mercy. Viewers, have you ever discovered that the person sleeping next to you was a complete stranger? What would you do, destroy them or save them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Please, before you continue, don't forget to subscribe, like and watch till the ending to share this interesting story. My name is Zeus David. I'm 34 years old, a project manager at a mid-sized tech firm in Portland, Oregon. For the past 7 years, I've been married to the woman I thought was my soulmate, Margaret, though everyone calls her Maigret. We met in college during a psychology seminar where she brilliantly dismantled a professor's flawed argument about behavioral conditioning. I fell for her intelligence first, her beauty second. She had this way of tilting her head when she was thinking deeply, her dark eyes narrowing with focus, and I remember thinking I'd never met anyone so alive. We got married young, 27 and full of dreams, and built what I believed was an unshakable life together in our modest craftsman home in the Hawthorne district. No kids yet, but we've been talking about it more seriously these past few months, or at least I thought we were. Tonight I woke up alone. The bed beside me was cold, the sheets undisturbed on her side, like she'd never come home at all. My phone showed 2:17 a.m. in harsh blue light. I checked the window overlooking our driveway, her silver Lexus wasn't there. My calls went straight to voicemail, that generic automated voice telling me the person I was trying to reach was unavailable. At 2:23 a.m., I heard the garage door rumble open, and my heart started hammering in my chest in a way that felt both familiar and terrifying. It reminded me of being 12 years old, waiting for my father to come home, knowing somehow that everything was about to change. She walked in wearing the same black dress from her work dinner, but something was different. Her hair was Messier hastily redone, with strands falling loose from what had clearly been a more elaborate style. Her lipstick was smudged at the corner, and there was a faint scent clinging to her that wasn't her usual Chanel perfume. It was masculine, expensive, something with notes of cedar and leather. "Where were you?" My voice came out steadier than I felt, but my hands were shaking slightly as I stood there in my old college t-shirt and pajama pants. She didn't even flinch. Her face remained calm, almost bored, as she kicked off her heels and dropped her clutch on the entry table with a soft thud. "Relax, Zeus. Lawson dropped me off. We had to finalize the quarterly projections. You know how demanding he is about deadlines." She said his name so casually, like it was nothing, like coming home at 2 in the morning with her boss was the most normal thing in the world. "At 2 a.m.? I repeated, feeling heat rise in my chest. "He's just my boss." Her tone had an edge now, defensive and sharp. "If you're jealous just because he drove me home at 2 a.m., that's your insecurity talking, not my problem." She brushed past me toward the bedroom and I caught that scent again, stronger now, undeniably male cologne mixed with something else I couldn't quite place. I thought about 6 months ago when Maigret got promoted to senior marketing director at Prestige Digital, a boutique marketing agency downtown in one of those renovated Pearl District buildings. Her new boss was Lawson Crane, 42, divorced according to office gossip, known in the industry as both brilliant and ruthless. She came home glowing that first week, her eyes bright with excitement as she talked about his vision and how he really saw her potential in ways her previous boss never had. I was happy for her then. Proud even. I'd hugged her and suggested we celebrate with champagne. Looking back now, I realized I didn't see the warning signs that were probably there all along, hidden in her enthusiasm and late nights at the office. Please don't forget to subscribe as you continue. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen scrolling through her phone, smiling at something on the screen with a softness I hadn't seen directed at me in months. When she noticed me standing in the doorway, the smile vanished instantly, replaced by a neutral expression that felt practiced and cold. "We need to talk about last night," I said, pouring myself coffee that I didn't really want but needed something to do with my hands. She sighed like I was a child asking the same irritating question over and over. "There's nothing to talk about. You're creating drama out of nothing, Zeus. This is exactly why I didn't want to wake you when I got home. Maigret, you came home at 2 a.m. with your lipstick smudged and smelling like men's cologne. I kept my voice level, reasonable, even though my pulse was racing. I reapplied it in the car, okay? And Lawson wears cologne, so what? God, Zeus, do you hear yourself right now? You sound paranoid. You sound like your father. She grabbed her bag from the counter, and that last comment hit me like a slap. She knew exactly what buttons to push, knew that comparing me to my father was the cruelest thing she could say. My father had been paranoid, suspicious, controlling, and he'd driven my mother away with his accusations before finally leaving her for his secretary anyway. The irony wasn't lost on me. I have an early meeting. We'll discuss this when you've calmed down and can think rationally. The door slammed behind her, rattling the framed wedding photo on the wall. I stood there holding my coffee mug, wondering when exactly my wife had started treating me like an obstacle instead of a partner. The house felt too quiet, too empty, filled with the ghost of who we used to be. I called my best friend Tony at 9 that morning from my car in the office parking lot. Tony Chin and I went to high school together, played basketball on the same team, stayed close through college and career changes and everything life threw at us. He became a private investigator 5 years ago after leaving the police force, and he was good at his job, the kind of good that made people nervous. Brother, his voice was careful when I explained why I was calling, are you absolutely sure you want to go down this road? Once you start looking, you can't unsee what you find. I need to know the truth, Tony. I can't keep living like this, wondering if I'm crazy or if something's really wrong. My throat felt tight. There was a long pause on the other end, and I could hear him breathing, thinking. All right. Give me 3 days. I'll be discreet. She won't know I'm watching. He paused again. Zeus, man, I hope I'm wrong about what I think I'm going to find. The truth was, I had reasons to be cautious about blind trust. My father left my mother when I was 12 for his secretary, classic and cliché and absolutely devastating. I watched my mom lose herself for years afterward, refusing to believe the signs that everyone else saw clearly, making excuses for him even after he'd moved out and started his new family. She'd sit at the kitchen table sorting through old photos, convinced she could have saved the marriage if she'd just been more attentive, prettier, better somehow. I promised myself standing at her funeral 3 years ago that I'd never be that blind, never let someone destroy me while I made excuses for them. Please don't forget to subscribe as you continue. That evening, I needed to move Magray's car to mow the lawn, something I did every Thursday out of habit and routine. When I opened the driver's side door, a small piece of paper fluttered to the ground like a white flag of surrender, landing face up on our concrete driveway. Hotel Marchand. Room 428. Check-in 10:47 p.m. Check-out 1:53 a.m. Yesterday's date printed in neat digital font. My blood turned to ice water in my veins. Hotel Marchand was a luxury boutique hotel downtown near the waterfront, the kind with a rooftop bar and European linens and rooms that cost $400 a night minimum. The kind of place you didn't just work at. The kind of place you took someone when you wanted privacy and plausible deniability and didn't care about the cost. I sat in her car for 20 minutes, just staring at that receipt, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm into her office right now and throw it in her face, demand explanations, make a scene. But another part, the part that had learned hard lessons from watching my father's affair explode and destroy everyone in the blast radius, knew I needed more than one receipt. I needed irrefutable proof and a clear plan before I made any moves. I took a photo of the receipt with trembling fingers and texted it to Tony. His response came immediately, just 3 words that confirmed my worst fears. I'm sorry, man. That night I started researching Lawson Crane online while Magray took an unusually long shower. On paper he was impressive in that glossy corporate way. Tony called me 3 days later at 2 in the afternoon while I was pretending to work at my desk, staring at spreadsheets without seeing them. I've got eyes on her. You sitting down? His voice had that professional flatness he used when delivering bad news. He sent me a video file that took forever to download on my phone. The footage showed Magray and Lawson at Bellissimo, an intimate Italian restaurant on the waterfront with white tablecloths and candlelight. The timestamp read 1:47 p.m. lunch hour, but they clearly weren't discussing quarterly projections or marketing strategies. His hand was on her thigh under the table, visible only because of the camera angle Tony had managed. She was laughing at something he said, touching his arm repeatedly, leaning in so close their foreheads almost touched. Then, and this was what broke something fundamental inside me, she fed him a bite of her tiramisu, and he caught her finger in his mouth for just a second too long, his eyes locked on hers. There's more, Tony said quietly through the phone. They've been meeting 3 times a week for the past month, always during extended lunch breaks. Twice they went back to Hotel Marchand afterward. Same room, 428. He's got it reserved on a semi-permanent basis. How do you know all this? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. Lawson's a creature of habit. Narcissists usually are. Same hotel, same floor, same room. Makes him feel in control. I've got timestamps, Zeus. I've got photos of them entering together and leaving separately, her fixing her clothes in the lobby. Please don't forget to subscribe as you continue. There's something else, Tony continued, and I could hear him shuffling papers. Something that doesn't add up. Lawson's been buying jewelry. Expensive stuff from Tiffany's and Cartier. 5 separate purchases in 2 months, each over $3,000. But here's the strange part. He paused for effect. He's married, Zeus. Currently, actively married. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step going downstairs. What do you mean he's married? McGray said he was divorced. Everyone at her office thinks he's divorced. That's what he tells people, but public records don't lie. Wife's name is Simone Crane. 2 kids, ages 6 and 9. They live in Lake Oswego in a nice neighborhood with a pool and a golden retriever. Family photos still up on social media, though Simone hasn't posted anything with Lawson in about 4 months now that I look closer. This changed everything in my mind. McGray wasn't just having an affair with her boss. She was helping a married man with children cheat on his family, becoming complicit in the destruction of another woman's life, another family's stability. The woman I married had a moral compass that pointed true north. She volunteered at animal shelters in college, cried during sentimental commercials, sent birthday cards to distant relatives. Or at least I thought she did. Maybe I never really knew her at all. That night, McGray came home at 7, unusually early for recent weeks. She was different, affectionate in a way that felt performative. She kissed me on the cheek, asked about my day, actually waited for me to answer. Tony called again 2 days later with information that shifted my entire understanding of the situation. You need to see this immediately. Can you meet me? 20 minutes later, we sat in his car outside a Starbucks while he showed me documents on his laptop that made my head spin. Lawson Crane isn't just cheating on his wife. He's bleeding his company dry systematically. Tony pulled up bank statements, expense reports, credit card transactions. Look at these. Company credit cards used for personal purchases, including those jewelry pieces. Client funds being redirected through shell accounts. And here's the worst part. He scrolled to sign documents. Every single transaction has McGray's signature as senior marketing director. She has financial authorization power, and he's been using it to cover his tracks. She's signing off on embezzlement? My mouth went dry. He's done this before, Tony continued, opening another file. At his last company 3 years ago, before his mysterious resignation that was actually a forced exit. A female executive took the fall for embezzlement while he walked away with a severance package. There was a lawsuit, settled quietly out of court with NDAs all around. I found it buried in legal databases. I stared at the screen, understanding dawning with horrible clarity. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was being set up as a financial scapegoat by a man who had perfected this pattern, who made a career of seducing women into signing documents they didn't fully understand, then disappearing while they faced the legal consequences. Part of me wanted to let her crash and burn spectacularly. She'd made her choices, betrayed our marriage, lied to my face repeatedly. I made a decision that surprised even myself. I would save McGray from Lawson's trap, even if I couldn't save our marriage, even if she'd never know it was me. Tony helped me compile everything over 3 sleepless nights. The financial irregularities with detailed spreadsheets, the pattern of behavior from Lawson's previous company including court documents, the affair which established motive and access, and most importantly, evidence that McGray's signatures were obtained under false pretenses. We sent an anonymous package to 3 people, the company's CFO, the board chairman, and Prestige Digital's corporate attorney. Inside was a USB drive and a typed note. Lawson Crane is systematically defrauding this company and positioning Margaret David as the fall guy. Review these documents before it's too late. Check his employment history. Check his previous company. This is a pattern. Within 48 hours, Lawson was suspended pending investigation. Within a week, he was fired and escorted from the building by security. His wife Simone filed for divorce after reporters contacted her about both the affair and the financial fraud that was now making local news. The district attorney started building a criminal case that looked increasingly solid. McGray came home that Friday evening looking shell-shocked, her face pale and her hands shaking. Lawson's gone. They fired him today. Security cleared out his office while we all watched. They're saying he was stealing from the company, that he's been doing it for months. That's terrible, I said carefully, watching her collapse onto the couch. They questioned me for 3 hours today, Zeus. 3 hours in a conference room with lawyers and investigators. They showed me documents with my signature on transactions I barely remember approving. 2 weeks later, Magre's lawyer confirmed she wouldn't face criminal charges. The investigation cleared her as an unwitting accomplice, a victim of manipulation rather than a co-conspirator. Lawson, meanwhile, was looking at 5 to 7 years in federal prison, and his perfect life was completely demolished. That night, Magre broke down completely. We sat at our kitchen table where we'd shared countless meals and dreams, and she finally told me the truth. I had an affair with Lawson. It started 4 months ago. The words hung in the air like smoke. He made me feel seen, important, like I was more than just someone's wife. He said I was brilliant, destined for greatness. She laughed bitterly through tears. God, it sounds so stupid now, so pathetically cliché. How long were you planning to keep lying? I asked quietly. I don't know. I thought I could stop, but then I was in too deep. He had control of everything, my career, my reputation, my signatures on documents I didn't understand. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. The anonymous tip that saved me, that was you, wasn't it? I didn't answer directly. Why would you save me after what I did? She whispered. Because 7 years ago I promised to love you in good times and bad. You broke that promise. But I didn't. The truth was more complicated. Our marriage had been dying long before Lawson appeared. We'd become strangers living parallel lives. 3 months later we sat with divorce papers between us. Lawson was in prison. Magre was in therapy, rebuilding herself. What do you want, Zeus? She asked. To not hate you, I said honestly. To remember the good without the poison. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like and share for more stories.